On my journey to cover the most exceptional player stories, not doing this episode on Adriano would be wrong in so many ways. Listen, I'm an AC Milan fan, but growing up I couldn't ignore what a beast l'Imperatore was, and I couldn't even enjoy his downfall. But if you don't take my word for it, here is what Zlatan had to say about him.
I demand him to stay because he's the player I want to play with. 50% of everything you do is the mental part. If you don't have it in your head, it's difficult.
And Adriano went through some events in his life that simply destroyed him. If you're old enough, you remember he was on his way to surpassing the real Ronaldo. This is the story of Adriano, who went from being the best player in the world to selling drugs in the favela he grew up in. Stay with me till the end, because the story just gets crazier and crazier. Adriano Leite Ribeiro was born on 17 February 1982 in Rio de Janeiro's notorious Vila Cruzeiro favela. This is a favela north of Rio de Janeiro that was really founded by released slaves in the 1800s and is known to be one of the most violent and dangerous slums in Rio. Among its creators was Adriano's great-granddad, who helped to set the foundation. And over the 130 years-ish of its history, it's common knowledge that neither the state nor its police department has ever been welcomed here and never tried to make a difference. The people of Vila Cruzeiro have built their own houses, schools and monuments, just like the one of our boy Adriano Imperador. As a result, the streets of Vila Cruzeiro have been run by drug cartels, and the absence of gang wars is constantly present. When Adriano's parents, Mirinho and Rosilda, got him, they were way too poor to have a child. But as Mirinho was a bit of an icon in town, the community gathered to help them build a house. Or calling it a house is a bit of an overstatement. They at least had a cover over their heads. Adriano remembers when they got their first van and even a radio that reported what was going on outside of Vila Cruzeiro. He never complained about his upbringing. He loved growing up in the favela, especially because his family was very respected in Vila Cruzeiro. Mirinho had an office job and was engaged in organizing favela football, which gave him a lot of status. And Mirinho's organization and communication skills didn't go unnoticed, for good and bad. As the gangs noticed that he was good at getting people's attention and had the street cred that he had, he became a local mediator. So, as the police weren't allowed into Vila Cruzeiro, it became Mirinho's responsibility to mediate and negotiate between various gangs and ensure peace in the community. Their home became basically the favela embassy, and I can go on and on about Adriano's upbringing as I find the topic captivating. But let's talk about Adriano from a football perspective. We'll come back to Mirinho later, I promise. The first to notice Adriano's talent or interest in football was his mother. She was amazed to see that Adriano was as good, if not better than the rest of the boys that Adriano was playing with on the streets. The difference? Adriano was around 7 years old, and he was playing with teenagers and grown men. Rosilda decided early that she had to take him off the street football and to an environment where his talent could be nurtured. But she didn't know anything about football, and the father was surprisingly not pushing for his boy to become serious about football at all. But she remembered that her father was a big Flamengo fan, so she took her son and went to Rio to find Flamengo's training grounds. Said and done, 3 tours, and about 3 hours later, they found the training grounds of Flamengo, but were surprised by the negative welcome they received. They didn't let a 7-year-old Adriano train with the youths, as he needed a club membership, and there were monthly fees to be paid, and they hadn't seen him play, etc, etc. Mommy took Adriano back home and convinced the rest of the family and relatives to chip in for all the necessary fees. They all agreed that it might be the best investment they could make. They all believed in him. So, back to Flamengo, but he now, the 7-year-old, had to prove to the biggest club in Brazil that he could make the team. No pressure, kid. But what he did was the same thing that he used to do on the streets of Vila Cruzeiro. Took the ball and scored, no questions asked. At first, the coach didn't believe that Adriano was 7 years of age and asked Rosilda to bring Adriano's birth certificate to the next practice. And he added, "But if it's true what you're saying, I've never seen a talent like this in my life." And this was the start of Adriano's new life, as he was soon to change the lives of his whole family. Not only did he make the team, he was smashing it. He was bigger and stronger than the rest of his teammates and was making a name for himself, although he only ate popcorn and bread at home. Only after a few years in the academy did Flamengo include him in the futsal team, which is a prestigious thing in Brazil, and also meant that he started to sort of get paid for playing football at 9 to 10 years of age. I mean, he wasn't making millies, but the membership fees were long gone, and he got a bonus here and there, which made a massive difference back home in Vila Cruzeiro. And when things were starting to look good for the young boy, something happened that changed his life forever, and probably resulted in him not having the career he was destined for. It was a party night in Vila Cruzeiro, as any other night, until things escalated quickly and people started to shoot at each other, which according to Adriano wasn't anything extremely unusual, only that this time an innocent Mirinho, Adriano's dad, got shot in the head by a bullet that bounced on the floor. The bullet went through Mirinho's forehead, but miraculously he survived. But the doctor couldn't perform surgery or take out the bullet, and he was told that he had no choice but to live the rest of his life with a bullet in his head. The consequences of this terrible event resulted in neither Mirinho nor Roselda could keep working. Crazy enough, Adriano didn't give up on the pitch. The family had no money, and the bonuses that the 10-year-old took home once in a while wasn't enough. But guess how the family survived? Vila Cruzeiro made it happen. The whole favela came together and helped the struggling family, which Adriano remembers until this day and is still thankful. Adriano is now 12 years of age and has started to make real money, and things are taking off really fast from this point. Sure, he had a few hiccups along the way with a coach who wasn't a big Adriano fan and played him at left back, as you probably heard, but it wasn't for long. Carlinos, the head of the academy, ensured that Adriano returned to playing in the striker position where he belonged and sacked the coach for playing Adriano out of position. After a few spells as a centre-back due to his size, he gets back to playing centre-forward, where he strives and gets to join the Brazil U17 national team and wins the U17 World Cup. And scouts got their first glimpse of Adriano Imperador. Okay guys, I could go on and on here about Adriano's personal life, his first drinking experiences, his first real girlfriend who happened to be from a competing favela, how he failed 5th grade 3 times, etc. But I need your feedback to know what you want to hear about in these player profile videos. I can go as deep as you want, but I need to know if that's what you're looking for, or if you'd rather hear me talk about Adriano on the pitch and see the goals he's banging in. Give me a shout in the comments, guys, so that I can adjust the content according to what you want to see. Back from U17 World Cup, Adriano finally gets a chance to make his first training session with the senior team of Flamengo. And you can probably guess what happens next. The team sets up to end the training session with a 7-a-side friendly, and Adriano gets the ball, faces Juan and Ronaldo, 2 massive center-backs who both played with the Brazil national team at the time. He pushes both away and sends a missile of a ball, and hits the crossbar. The shot was so hard that the ball bounced back to the halfway line, and this got people talking, and straight away caught the gaffer's attention. The coach already knew. He had to sign that beast. Adriano got his first senior contract and made about 3,000 euros a month while still living in the favela with his family, which obviously is crazy money in Vila Cruzeiro. But what happened next was more life-changing for the family, as Nike signed Adriano and ensured to take him and his family out of the favela and rented a big apartment for them in the prestigious Barra da Tijuca, one of the top addresses in Rio de Janeiro. His debut for Flamengo's senior team finally came on the 2nd of August 2000, at 18 years of age against Grêmio. In the next game against the almighty giant Sao Paulo, Adriano hit the net for the first time and made a name for himself in Brazil. So much that it only took him 2 months to get his national team call-up. This is how Adriano remembers it. I was still living in the favela with my parents at the time. Actually, I was taking a nap when they made the big squad announcement on TV. My mom came into the room yelling, "Adriano, Adriano, son, you have been called up. My God." I said, "Huh? What? Are you kidding me?" I got out of bed and saw my name on the TV. Come on, man, be serious. I'm 18 years old, living in the favela. How can you say that I was not touched by God? My story, it does not make any logical sense, even to me. To be honest though, looking at the strikers that Brazil called up for those World Cup qualifiers, I'm not even surprised that they had to throw in a promising wildcard striker. Amoroso, Elber, Franca, Luizao. Sure, I remember some of them. But I'd picture Brazil had better strikers back then, especially since they won that World Cup only 2 years later. It was a great confidence boost for our main man, however, and he found the net 9 times in his breakthrough 2001 campaign, while also becoming one of Brazil's youngest ever national team debutants. Inter were quick to lay their eyes and hands on him, but they did not expect what was around the corner. Adriano got to make his debut against Real Madrid. on the 14th of August 2001 in a friendly game. With number 14 on his back, he came in and didn't think about it, as he said. He dribbled, nutmegged and had fun on the pitch, until he got a bad tackle just outside of the box. He says that the crowd was screaming for him to take it, so he decided to take the free kick himself. Remember that the guy is 19 and a nobody at this stage. Seedorf and Materazzi wanted to take the free kick, but Adriano took the ball and refused to give it to Materazzi, who got pissed. Seedorf calmed him down and said, "Let the kid take it." And boom! Up in the right corner it went and reached 170 kilometers an hour and sealed a 2-1 victory for Inter. With a start like that, he was an instant success in Italy. Or not. Serie A was something different back then. His first season didn't go as he may have wanted. Only 1 goal in 8 appearances. No wonder, considering the strikers Inter had back then. Recoba, Hakan Şükür, Bobo Vieri, and of course Adriano's biggest role model, Ronaldo. He took the youngster under his wings and showed him the way. He was going to learn a lot, but his success at Inter had to wait, as Nerazzurri decided that a loan spell would be the best choice for his development. Fiorentina acted fast and secured Adriano for the second half of the 2001 to 2002 season. He thanked Viola for the chance and increased playtime by scoring 6 goals in 15 games. It may not sound like a lot, but it wasn't bad in the early 2000 Serie A. This successful loan spell led to another club laying their eyes and interest on Adriano Parma. And it was beyond interest, as it forced them to make a somewhat of a stupid deal to sign him on a 2-year loan. They included co-ownership of Fabio Cannavaro in the deal. Yeah, the same Fabio Cannavaro, who to this day is the only defender to ever win FIFA World Cup Player of the Year and only the 3rd in history to win Ballon d'Or. It wasn't the best investment from Parma, but in the short term, Adriano did wonders. 23 goals in 37 games, plus all the assists to his forward companion Adrian Mutu, another player that the streets won't forget. 2 seasons later, Inter were happy to have Adriano back, as Ronaldo moved to Real Madrid, and it was time for our boy to become the main man in attack. Was he going to disappoint? Forget about it. 12 goals in 18 games, and the nickname L'Imperatore was set in stone because of how he dominated the other teams, just like an emperor ruled the kingdom. Back in Brazil, he was already being called the new Ronaldo, and at this stage Adriano is only 21 years old. This season, Adriano would score 28 goals in 42 appearances, which are crazy numbers for Serie A back in the days. You just cannot compare it to what is going on today in the Premier League with Salah and Haaland. Okay, for the older crowd, how many goals do you think that Haaland would have scored in the early 2000 Serie A? I'm really curious to know your answers. Let me know in the comments. We all know where this story is leading, and the season of 2004 to 2005 is when the bomb dropped. Mourinho, Adriano's father, has passed away in his sleep. Zanetti remembers the day very well and speaks about it in an interview, saying, "I saw him in his room. He threw the phone and started screaming. You cannot imagine that kind of scream. I've never heard anything like it in my entire life." This is where Adriano's depression started. But you couldn't see it on the pitch. Quite the opposite, actually, as Adriano added anger to his arsenal. He was furious on the pitch and kept on scoring, dedicating the goals to his father. But after receiving the call, he was never the same again. And the anger turned into sadness eventually. About 1 year after his father passed away in the 2005 season, all motivation was gone. He just couldn't take it anymore. Depression took over, and Adriano stacked bad habits. Drinking became his escape, and he'd be drunk from dusk till dawn. He literally trained drunk in the mornings. It didn't go unnoticed in Milano either. He didn't even try to hide it. Everyone knew where Adriano spent his nights. Topville, Club Hollywood, Palusa. If you ever spent a weekend in Milano, you know which clubs I'm talking about. He was always there, in bad shape, making scenes. Always the first one to arrive, and the last one to leave. Paparazzis were crowding in the Milano nightlife to expose the shit show, so something had to be done right. Together with Inter agreed that it couldn't go on, so he came up with a solution. Since me going to the clubs isn't that popular, I'll take the club to myself. And he built a nightclub in his house in Como. I'm not even kidding. Winter break is around the corner now, and Adriano is not super popular in the club at this stage, as you can imagine. Next great idea. The party continues in Vila Cruzeiro. Once he came back, he was overweight and completely out of shape. But despite everything that was going on, he still had it. He even made it into Brazil's final squad for the 2006 World Cup and got to play up front with his hero, Ronaldo. But as Adriano said himself, my love for football was never the same. Back from the World Cup, Inter had something good going on. They won the Scudetto and had Crespo and Zlatan up front. That's another profile that I covered. If you like this story and you're still with me, I strongly recommend you watch the episode about Zlatan. Inter had no choice but to send Adriano on rehab in Brazil. They still believed in his potential and knew that he could come back to the player he used to be. He underwent an extensive physical and psychological rehabilitation program at Sao Paulo's training center for 18 months, and even officially joined the club on loan in December. Adriano scored 11 goals in 19 games for Sao Paulo, but he continued to make headlines off the pitch. He missed trainings, went out partying, and completely took the piss. So sporting director Carlos Augusto de Barros Silva had to take the decision to terminate his contract and send him back to Italy with the motivation: we had a balanced squad and it was better for Adriano to go back. Well, that's one way to put it. He then got signed with the Brazilian side Corinthians, but ruptured his Achilles first thing in training. And from here on, there is no reason to continue the story of the footballer Adriano. It's one of the saddest stories in all football, and kids these days will not comprehend how good he was. I was born in '89, so I got to experience Adriano at his peak. The man was something different, but his mental demons were even stronger than he was. Today, Adriano spends his time in Vila Cruzeiro, with his family, friends, and groupies. Here, I walk barefoot and shirtless, just wearing shorts. I play dominoes, sit on the curb, remember my childhood stories, listen to music, dance with my friends, and sleep on the floor. There is this myth that Adriano is broke. He is not. He simply chose to live a more down-to-earth lifestyle in a surrounding that he calls home. He is loved and admired in Brazil as a player, but even more so as a person. Long live l'Imperatore, and shout out to the real ones who stayed until the end. This one was for you.